My brothers and sisters, hearty welcome to this session on problems in prayer. In our last session, we discussed about the very fundamental and basic problem that we have in our prayer life, that is distraction. So we now go a bit further to discuss and see what are the other two levels of problems that we have in our prayer life. The second problem that we would find, in fact, as a consequence of distraction, is the problem called dryness in prayer or aridity. Psalm 63 verse 1 would say, "My heart is longing for you, my God, like a dry, weary land." An yearning that emerges from inside the heart of the psalmist. Psalm 6 would assign certain reasons for dryness. It could be illness, it could be grief, it could also be our sinfulness. Therefore, I would like to share and reflect with you some of the reasons why we experience the sense of dryness inside. I have heard many of my own students and many with whom I have come in contact telling me, "I'm interested in prayer, but I'm finding it so difficult to pray. There is a sense of dryness. When I go and sit for my prayer, I'm not able to pray at all. Something is affecting me." Our responsibility today is to concentrate on those areas of our life which we have not addressed effectively. We need to bring them before our own picture and see how we need to tackle some of those issues with a sense of serenity, peace, and equanimity. So, what are some of those problems which we find as the reasons for dryness in prayer? The first reason perhaps could be physical illness. My brothers and sisters, many of you who are very young now, you are well aware one of the most important and earnest desires in our life is to be healthy, to be handsome, to be beautiful, and be appreciated by everyone. Good health, fitness of the body and mind are very relevant and important for a holistic lifestyle. When sickness affects us, we know how difficult it is for us to concentrate on matters concerning life. And one of those problems that we often find is the difficulty to pray. There are very many cases when people become sick, even with a slight headache. They are not able to concentrate on anything, forget about prayer, on anything for that matter. Do we address these sicknesses earnestly? I have seen in some rare cases at least, due to personal negligence, people have entered into various serious problems of health-related matters, including cancer. One of the most important things that we need to do when we are sick is to address them immediately. And that kind of an attitude is very important for life. Sicknesses are part of human life. To treat them is our responsibility. Human bodies are vulnerable, fragile, and weak. Therefore, they need to be kept fit through our personal involvement and responses to the needs of the body. Sports, medical helps, as well as personal interest in hygienic matters are all very important for us to keep ourselves healthy, neat, and fit. So when we are sick, perhaps one of the most important virtues that we need to practice is the virtue of patience. I have seen people who are affected by chronic illness have developed the sense of patience. Very many of you here would personally know Reverend Father Matthew Kalathingal, who died a few months back. Father Matthew was one of those persons who was well known in religious circles as the head of the Department of Missiology in St. Peter's, as well as spiritual guide for many religious congregations, and as a good professor. Father Matthew excelled in good relationship. A man who was very healthy, but unfortunately, suddenly he was detected with prostate cancer. I saw the various stages of his life as he became sick. I could experience in the beginning a sense of desperation. Thereafter, a sense of total surrender. And finally, a joyful acceptance of the reality of his life. One of the most important things that I noticed of him is a sense of gratitude to everyone before he died. Perhaps that surrender is a necessary aspect of our life too when we are chronically ill. Are we patient enough to address some of these physical illnesses that we experience in our life? Are we disciplined enough to address them? Take care of our physical existence so that we are able to be fit before the Lord in prayer. Absence of health is one of the reasons for dryness in prayer. A second reason for dryness in spiritual life is psychological illness. Very many of us experience one time or the other a low in our life. Some experience a sense of depression. Others have a sense of inferiority complex, or some others perhaps even superiority complex. Very often it emerges from lack of acceptance of one's own personality. I was just wondering what personality is. I went and checked the dictionary, and the meaning of personality is not physical appearance. It's a combination of the qualities of a person which are arrayed in such a way he is presenting himself as a holistic person. That is personality. Combination of your qualities arrayed in a perfect manner, making you a holistic person. Personality, therefore, does not mean your color, your height, or your abilities to perform things. All these matter, but at the same time, it is an interior disposition that you hold which is affecting positively those who come in contact with you. Unfortunately, many of us give way to feelings such as, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough, I'm this or I'm that, and we give to sense of depression and a sense of loneliness. The most important aspect is a sense of openness before God. People who experience such difficulties should go for animation and guidance, especially spiritual direction, even for counseling and therapy to address their ill health. We need to address these matters on time so that we are able to contain ourselves in the most effective way. A third reason for dryness in prayer is a lack of conversion from certain addictions. For example, it could be, normally when we say addiction, we think immediately about alcoholism. It need not be that alone. It could be one of the reasons. But on the other side, addictions are of different kinds. It could be sexual aberrations, a certain behavioral style, attachment to certain people, attachment to one's own family, too much interest in money matters, taking one's own life to extreme levels of indisciplined lifestyle. All these could be lack of conversion from addictions to certain things. My brothers and sisters, some of these addictions can be very consequential in our life. we give way to certain behavioral styles to that extent, our priorities are forgotten. Certain times, some of these come on the way of our commitment to religious life and priesthood. Sometimes it affects our family life and relationships. Those who are in families, you know very well, when a person is addicted to alcohol, his behavioral style towards his life partner and children are totally aberrated. In the context of our religious life, we are well aware relationships of maturity are always appreciated. But when they are infatuated relationships, we are in trouble because we lose focus on the priorities of life. Certain times, some of these untoward incidents and behavioral styles have caused the good name of the church to be totally destroyed. Where are we standing today? Are we in one way or the other affected by some of these habitual behavioral styles that we are no more able to concentrate on the focus or the priority of our life? So the most important remedy for such thing is a sense of openness in relating to one another. Transparency in behavioral styles are very much necessary. Sometimes we say we behave like monkeys. One of the specialities of monkeys is that they are very much clinging to things that they hold on. They would never give up. If they catch hold of something, they are unwilling to give it up. And we also remain sometimes like that. In spite of the corrections, suggestions, animations that we receive, we deny the reality and we stand firm on our infatuated lifestyle. Shall we return, have a look into ourselves and see how we are behaving? Yet another dimension which we need to take into consideration regarding the dryness in prayer life is a problem called procrastination. That is, postponing things indefinitely. We have in the Song of Songs, chapter 5, verses 2 to 6, the story of the bride who is complaining about her lack of preparedness. When the bridegroom came, she says, "I'm not ready. I'm on my bed. I have not done with my hair." And one after the other, various excuses, and she delays her readiness to accept the bridegroom. And as a consequence, the bridegroom goes away and she loses the great chance to enter into a relationship with the bridegroom. Procrastination is one of the reasons for dryness in prayer. Very many of us think a last moment attempt would save the situation. One or two times it functions well. But on the other times we find most of us are satisfied with the minimum or the average just because we were not prepared enough to address matters on time. This is a normal tendency which we find in young generation. When I was young, I knew how life was with me. Therefore, I can honestly say youngsters find it much more comfortable to procrastinate than others. As we grow in maturity of life, we would be able to understand some of these things are to be done on time. But by then, we might lose a good lot of our chances. One of the things that I remember for myself is that the opportunity that I had to learn music. Today, as a priest, when I stand before the people, for example, to preach a retreat, I just ask myself, Benny, if you were to make use of the opportunity that you were given at that time to learn music, you could have played keyboard and sang. You could have preached well and made the retreat much more effective than what you are doing now. But I need to regret that I have lost an opportunity that was provided to me. That should not happen with any of you. We shall not procrastinate, nor shall we avoid or reject the opportunities that are presented before us. Let's address them, catch hold of them and tell, I'm going to do it. I have my disciplined approach towards these things so that I will always be faithful and committed to the responsibilities that are entrusted to me and fulfill it on time. Shall we do that? When we do not do that, we enter into struggles of containing our own problems, and that leads to dryness or aridity in prayer. Yet another thing that we would find in the context of the dryness in prayer is insincerity towards ourselves and others, especially insincerity in confession and spiritual direction. Most often, when we go for confession, what we do is to generalize our sins. That is not the approach that we need to have. I should be first and foremost honestly and sincerely sorry about what has gone wrong with me. And with that sense of repentance, when I approach the confessional, the Lord who is there to hear me would forgive my sins. Let me be transparent before God. Let me be transparent in receiving animation and guidance from my spiritual director. Therefore, two things that we need to specially take into consideration, even as we grow as priests and religious, are the necessity to visit the sacrament of confession regularly and never forget to have a spiritual director all through our life. These two aspects, confession and spiritual direction, can clean our attitudes and make us holistic in our approach. Are you sincere in addressing your spiritual life? If so, are you serious enough to take the sacrament of confession as well as to go for spiritual direction regularly without force? It should become an inner conviction. Therefore, what is necessary here is a sincere, transparent openness before the confessor as well as the spiritual director, knowing well my sincerity will help me to grow beyond my smallness or lack of transparency. And finally, in order to avoid dryness in prayer, we need to consider a problem called negligence in personal prayer. Prayer is relationship. And everyone who prays enters into a constant relationship with God. And the most important means of this relationship is communication. The moment you sit before your God, you are entering into a personal relationship. The more the communication, the better the quality of our relationship. My brothers and sisters, from time immemorial, one of the most importantly suggested means of relationship in prayer is personal relationship with God. We have our community prayers, which we do in gathering of many together. But at the same time, do you spend some time in personal prayer? Unless and until you develop a personal relationship with your God, you would never be able to meet that God in your brother, in your sister, in your relationship, in your commitment. Transparency, faithfulness, fidelity, and commitment in human relationships develop when one person is interiorly committed to his God who has called him to this particular way of life. Therefore, I would suggest to you one exercise that we need to do every day of our life. Spend at least half an hour in personal prayer. Especially for priests and religious, we need to remember, we do not have a family. We do not have even parents, husband or wife or children. The only one to whom we can cling on in our personal relationship is our God. And if we do not have even relationship with Him, are we not heading towards a peril? Are you negligent in your prayer life? Are you finding dryness inside of you? My brothers and sisters, I suggested before you some of these problems which we can face and cause dryness in our prayer life. Are you ready enough to address these matters, evaluate yourself personally, and to come to a consensus, a discernment for yourself to see how you can overcome this problem of dryness in prayer life? So finally, my brothers and sisters, we come to the third problem in prayer, which is considered to be the peak level of the problems in prayer. That is the absence of God. One begins to feel God is no more existing. Psalm 22, verse 1, the psalmist would cry out like this: my God, why have you forsaken me? Psalm 31:9 would say, be merciful to me, my God, I am a sinner. The cry of the psalmist brings home to us the message. He feels the absence of God in him. And you know, on the cross, Jesus repeated the same words pronounced by the psalmist. My God, why have you forsaken me? A desperate cry of the Lord, which was never translated. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. A cry that emerged from inside with a sense of desperation. Even Jesus experienced a moment of the absence of God. And this is a normal happening in the life of many great people, spiritual giants who have gone through life struggles. Even Mother Teresa, at the last moment of her life, mentioned, for the past 50 years of my life, very often God was absent in my life. Such a great, venerable saint, speaking about her personal experience of the absence of God, in spite of the number of hours every day she spent before the Eucharistic Lord. I will cling on to you, Lord. I know that you exist. What are some of the reasons for this experience of the absence of God in our life? One of the most important things that we would notice is that the experience of the absence of God, in fact, is a stage of growth in prayer. A person who is more and more committing himself and attaching himself to God would naturally find the absence of Him whom he loves so much. This is so natural for us as well, isn't it? When you love somebody, you like to hear that person more and more. And sometimes even you complain, you did not call me today. You did not speak with me today. You are no more loving me. Various are our complaints because the intensity of our love for the other is so much that we already begin to feel that the other is absent from our life. The more you are in love, the more you experience the absence of the other. Therefore, it is a stage of the growth in our prayer life. We begin to experience God is absent because we love God so much. A second reason for this experience of the absence of God in our life is as a process of purification. Some of those experiences that we have in our own personal lives can vivify this matter. Due to sicknesses, due to severe temptations that we experience, due to the criticisms that we received from others, due to a painful experience of the death in the family, or even due to religious politics, very many of us are affected very badly. But all these experiences have a purificatory nature. They make us become more and more aware of the presence of God, although God is not physically felt in our life. But in spite of that, we are strengthened to understand the meaning of life by experiencing negative things in life. I still remember one of the statements made by Father Anthony Colangeri, the former director and the founder of Indian Institute of Spirituality. He says, "The more I am affected by the criticism of others, the more I am strengthened to see the grace of God in my life. And therefore, I become more strong when I am affected by negativities. God strengthens me, takes care of my life." This is a purificatory aspect of our life. Therefore, problems in life, difficulties in life need not be a negative thing for us. It can also turn out to be a positive signal for us to see the presence of God, even when we experience His absence. God is alive. Let me conclude this talk with a beautiful experience, an exclamation by Saint Teresa of Child Jesus. As all of us know, so ardent to become a religious nun, she joined the Carmelite order when she was just 15 years of age. She went through the formative programs of her congregation, but unfortunately for her, at the age of 23, she was found with tuberculosis. She had to experience a lot of irk, anger, and lack of love, and at the same time, a sense of desperation that was creeping inside of her. She asked herself the question, are all these mere illusions? But she never stopped to pray. She continued to journey in prayer with God. And one day, as she was in prayer, she lifted up her hands towards God and cried out, "I know very well, my sun is shining behind the clouds." You know the nature of the clouds. Clouds are never permanent. Clouds move away. And my sun, which is behind the clouds, will shine again. The sun, Jesus Christ, is beyond our human predicaments, beyond our human problems. Problems are like clouds. They would move away, but the Lord remains forever. The cry of a person who has experienced total absence of God in her life and finally coming out with an answer, "My sun shines behind the clouds." My brothers and sisters, we were addressing some of the fundamental problems that we have in our prayer life. The problem of distraction, the problem of dryness or aridity, and the problem of the absence of God in our life. They all need not be at the same time. A person who is in distraction can sometimes suddenly overcome it and come to the second and third stage, but again can fall back to the first level because of our human frailties. But let us be conscious about some of these things that are happening inside of us, that we would be able to address these problems in a very positive manner and come out of these problems and remain always faithful to God. I wish each of you God's abundant blessings. Thank you.